Your Steve Jones Show podcast will start shortly. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Brewers Outlet, your beverage supermarket on Reagan Street in Sunbury.
All right, let's bring in from SI.com, I believe it's Fan Nation, and that is Mark Wogenrich. My friend, welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon. What time is it? What day are we? 4 hours.
And good afternoon, good night, whatever. Are you back?
Yeah, I was. This was a game I couldn't get to, so at least
okay.
I, didn't have to be in the press box until 3 a.m. I was just at home until 3 a.m. But it took that much time to process.
Yeah. I walked in my door at 4:15 this morning, so yeah, it's all right. For some reason, I wasn't tired. I don't know why. I'm sitting here right now. I don't know why I'm not tired.
Yeah, who can tell? Who can tell why? After 7 lead changes and 100 passes, why you would be in a game that ended that way? Why you still wouldn't be tired?
Yeah, exactly. So, to me, this is on the winning side of it, the winning coach, James Franklin. This is to me a great scenario because he's got video that shows a lot of positives. He's got video that needs corrections, and he's doing it from a position of a win. Is that fair to you?
Yeah, not only is it fair, I think it's absolutely true. I mean, if you think about the last, they've basically flown home from a Big Ten opener for 3 straight years, right? 2 of them they left happy. All 3 of the games, they've flown home with a bunch of corrections they've had to make. Twice they've done it, from a positive perspective, and then 3 years ago, or 2020, they did it kicking themselves, asking, how did we let that one get away? Could have done that last night too. I think Manny Diaz is going to go in there with a flash drive full of stuff that he can show his guys. I think Mike Yurcich can say, we tried to establish a run that we never really were able to do. We've got to fix all of that, and ultimately, then you're doing it though. The fact that you beat a good team on the road and probably one of the better environments they've ever had, for at least looking from, you've been there a bunch of times, looking at it from afar. That I don't remember being in an atmosphere at Purdue that looked anything like that, sounded anything like that. And ultimately, when you can do that, when you're a coach and you can go in there and do 30 seconds of, hey, great win now, fix all this, I think you feel so much better about that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do too. I mean, when you look at it, I thought Manny Diaz, the last 5 possessions of the game for Purdue were 3 3-and-outs, a 5-and-out, and a 6-and-out. So the last 5 possessions, they ran a total of 20 plays. Yeah. It looked like that Manny had them tighten up all the windows. Right? Not as much cushion. And to me, that's a coordinator that, okay, I practiced with these guys, but it was the first time he'd actually been in practical application with it. And I thought he made some really interesting adjustments.
And that really could have backfired on him because those guys had to be. I mean, they played. By my count, there were 23 guys who played on defense. Could have been 22, 23. They haven't even been players. They had to be exhausted, especially that back, the secondary. That back 7 had to just be gassed completely at that point. And now you're asking them to make, a bunch of tight quarter plays. It could have been more pass interferences. It really could have unraveled for them. I mean, there was the one throw downfield that overturned. That was a really, really close catch on Purdue's part. That might have changed the momentum in the situation at that point. But to entrust a secondary that, that was involved in so much. I mean, they made great plays. They made bad plays. They ran a spectrum in that game. To entrust them in that situation, for them to come through against an offense, to me, inexplicably, through 11 times in a row with the lead.
I know.
When you've got a pretty good running back, that's a stressful situation. And to me, there was an incredible response. I had to go back and look. 5 stops in a row. And those were stops those were stops with plays, too. Those are stops with broken up passes and with, a couple of really important sacks, timed, really incredibly well-timed sacks.
Joey Porter Jr. had the one PI early, holding maybe whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Boy, after that, Mark, that's one of the better performances I've seen by a Penn State corner in a long time. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen a Penn State corner involved in a game like that. Again, a spectrum. I mean, he had that interception that may or may not could have returned. He's at the ball, recovers the Key Wheatley's fumble. He did have the PI. I mean, he was involved. They threw to that Charlie Jones like 12 times. He was covering. He broke up 3 passes. That was the credit, and I think it's probably at least 5 or 6 that he was involved in. He was great, and he was flashy, and he made mistakes. He just played this an outsized game. Like, I can't remember a Penn State corner, just feeling like they were so much a part of a game like that. And it really was fascinating to me that Purdue kept going back to it and just kept, you're covering our best receiver, so you're going to get the action. And ultimately, even with 19 targets, I think, for Jones, something like that, even with all of that, I think, I think Joey came out as a winner in that game.
And that's a good point, Mark. The running game part of it, the odd part of it is this is going to be maybe go 180 of the visual of last night. Maybe it goes 180 of the stat part of it last night. Kind of walked out of there, and Jack Ham and I both felt, what? Especially with the 2 kids, that they're eventually going to have a running game with this team. That's just us. What did you think?
Mm-hmm. That's the right word, but that's also a word that's 14 games now of eventually, even, going back maybe to a little bit of 2020, a different situation, obviously, but I think eventually is got to come pretty soon for the run game and for the offensive line. There were flashes. I like the way those 2 freshmen ran. I think Kevon Lee, if he seeds carries over the course of the next few weeks and the rest of the season to Singleton and Katron Allen, I don't think that means he's going to be any less important to that offense, which he showed on that last series. He had 2 very important catches on that last series. And that wheel, that's a tough catch. That looked a little Saquon Barkley-esque.
Yes.
To me, the way he cut. Not only did he caught it, but if you look, you watch the replay, he looks down at his feet, and he's got to move. He's got to keep his feet from, getting out of bounds, kind of thing. I mean, he really kind of did a little step that was just perfect. And in that situation, that was pretty remarkable. So I think they're going to bust it out probably 2 of the next 3 weeks. I think they're going to probably push it against Ohio, push our running game, really, maybe lopside the run-pass ratio. I think it was 58-42 last night or something like that. Throw pass. I think they're going to get a little closer. They're going to get closer to 50, probably run a little more. I think they're going to try to do that. And I think really try to press it next week especially get the freshmen some real live work.
They really struggled at times, I think, to get pressure with 4 last night. I also know that Purdue plays in a certain way that causes that. You do have to take that into account. O'Connell was a 72% passer for the entirety of last season. Mm-hmm. He had 50% last night. It felt like he was hitting plays, but then Jack and I kept looking at the numbers going, gee, he's only get 50, he's only get 50. So in the end, that turned out okay because he was 22 percentage points below his normal number.
That was one of probably the strangest stat line when I looked at it and I saw that Sean Clifford, if you're going to feel a quarterback game, those numbers seem completely inverted to me. Sean Clifford was at 54%, and his QB rating was like 148. And Aiden O'Connell was at 50%. His QB rating was around just barely over 100. It felt different than that. I think a lot of that has to do with Penn State secondary just being around balls persistently and consistently. I think the stat that ultimately struck me most, he had 19 touchdown passes in the last 5 games of last season. He threw one last night.
One.
That was that's kind of what Penn State used to do to Drew Brees back in the 90s, when Drew Brees would throw for 1 billion yards and they just couldn't get the ball in the end zone consistently. One touchdown pass out of 58 throws. That's when you know your defense is getting stops. Ultimately, you want that more than anything.
Doug Flutie. God, way back in the day, Doug would throw for 500 yards this year, 40 the other. They'd score 17, they'd score 10. Okay. Wow.
Meanwhile, Sean's got 4 touchdown passes, and 2 of them in the last minute of each half. Is that?
Yeah, he threw 1 touchdown pass for every 9 attempts.
Yeah.
And O'Connell threw 1 touchdown pass for every 58. And now, what did you think of Drew Aller?
I think he threw the best pass of the night, quite frankly.
Yeah. He throws a beautiful ball.
Goodness.
Jeez.
Oh, my goodness. It's the kind of thing that you're gonna look back on in a couple of years and say, remember, that third down play, I think he could have ran. All that stuff that he's got to learn. And then in a couple of years, he's going to be doing that. But just in that moment, that instant, watching him move around the pocket, the way he moved around the pocket, and then that ball to Tyler Warren, that took me back. That's when I said, whoa, that's a throw. That's just a legit throw. It's good to see Tyler come back on that last series. Again, there seemed like we had a lot of redemption stories in that game, but it was good to see Tyler Warren come back in that last series and catch that ball from Sean and hold on to it because he got crushed. That was a big play on the scoring drive, but you would know he would want to catch that pass.
Yeah,
that was just lovely.
I mean, and again, he's not a scrambler, Drew Aller. Mm-hmm. But he's a better runner than people think he is, and he showed it on that one play, I thought.
Mm-hmm. And he could have probably run a third. Again, learning situation. One thing that struck me watching it on television was just before he came in, they showed a close-up of him, and you could see him smiling through the helmet. I mean, that did not really he did not display anxiety or fear in that situation. I mean, if he had it, I'm saying if he had it, though, he was suppressing it because that smile looked eager. It didn't look afraid. There was not a nervous smile in that situation at all.
Yeah, we have the big advantage, Jack and I do, of having Brian Tripp right there on the sideline. Mm-hmm. And Brian was telling us, he was calm, cool, collected, at least outwardly. And that Mike Yursich told him, he says, look, keep it simple. Just go in and just be you. And it looked like that's what he did.
And I think at this point you want to see more of that too. You definitely want to see more of him. Maybe others too. I don't know, but you want to see more of that. You want to see him establish some more feet and establish some more rhythm and playing time. Hopefully, he gets that in next couple of weeks.
It is always great to talk with you. And I'm glad you're going to at least be in the building this week. That'll be great.
Absolutely.
All right.
See you Saturday.
Thanks, Mark.
Steve.
You're the best.